Hi, good afternoon. My name is Terry Bowen, and on behalf of Shari's wife, Deborah, and the family, I would like to welcome you to Shari's gathering of remembrance. We're so glad that you are here to share in this time of grieving, and this time of loving, and this time of remembering and sharing. To begin our service today, we are going to watch a video that Deborah has so carefully put together, and we hope that you find it meaningful.
As I said, my name is Terry Bowen, and I am the minister of
congregational care at Park Hill United Church of Christ. That's where I first met Deborah and Shari. They were actually the first people that I welcomed as members at the church. And they were just so we were just so happy to have them because Shari was the type of person that you would say, Shari, what would you like to do? And she'd say, anything. I will do anything. And she absolutely did. That was the way she lived her life. Like many of you, I remember so many things about her, her smile, her humor, her uncanny wit, her laughter. Or maybe for you, it was her tenderness and her compassion. But my most long-lasting memory that I have with Shari is a conversation that I had with her about prayer. Shari told me that her definition of prayer is really the way you live your life. Shari's life was a living prayer. For instance, when Shari donated books to the Veterans Library, she was praying for a better life for the veterans. And when Shari became an educator, she was praying for the children, especially those who needed a soft space to land. And when Shari took food to the local food bank, she was praying for the hungry among us. When Shari volunteered at the center, she was praying for equal rights and marriage equality for everyone. And when Shari volunteered at the Alzheimer's Association and the Denver Hospice, she was praying for the lost and the dying. And when Shari made jokes, as you all know she did, she was praying for more laughter in this world. And when Shari prayed for more loving kindness in this world, she loved every person here and then some. Her prayer life has touched us, and some of us may not even have known that she was praying for us. But this is my memory of Shari, and later today, you will have a chance to tell your own story about Shari. But for now, as we move forward with the gathering of remembrance, hear this blessing. It's called The Blessing You Should Not Tell Me by Jan Richardson from the book, The Cure for Sorrow. It goes like this. The blessing you should not tell me. Do not tell me there will be a blessing in the breaking, that it will ever be a grace to walk into this life so altered, this world so without. Do not tell me of the blessing that will come in the absence. Do not tell me what does not kill me will make me strong, or that God will not send me more than I can bear. Do not tell me that this will make me more compassionate, more loving, more holy. Do not tell me this will make me more grateful for what I had. Do not tell me I was lucky. Do not even tell me that there will be a blessing. Give me instead the blessing of breathing with me. Give me instead the blessing of sitting with me when you cannot think of what to say. Give me instead the blessing of asking about her, know how we met or what I loved most about the life we have shared. Ask for a story or tell me one, because a story is the only place on earth she lives now. If you could know what grace lives in such a blessing, you would never cease to offer it. If you could glimpse the solace and sweetness that abide there, you would never wonder if there was a blessing you could give that would be better than this. The blessing of your own heart, opened and beating with mine. May our hearts be opened and beating. Amen. And now Mark Wilkins is going to come forward. He is Shari's brother, and he is going to tell you all about Shari as a child and as a sister.
My sister passed away a few days before her 75th birthday. That's 3/4 of a century of life experiences, of relationships, of changes, of accomplishments in a full life. And I hope my little snapshot of Shari as a child will honor that fullness and wholeness of her life. As I thought about what to say today, I realized that I knew Shari in a different way than other people. I didn't meet her sometime in life when our paths crossed. I didn't evaluate her based on the usual first impressions of how she looked or what she did, deciding whether I liked her or could be friends with her. She was my big sister. The fabric of our lives were woven together from birth. She and our younger brother, Steve, and I shared the same genes from our parents and ties to our family and community and each other from the time we were born. Though we were all individuals, that is actually what separated us. As a nuclear family, we were intimately bound together. We will always be a part of one another's life, no matter where we are. We grew up in an unusual family. Our mother had polio and was paralyzed from the neck down. This dictated our home life and played a large part in shaping who we became as adults. As we got older, we started taking more responsibility for home life and the caring of our mother. Someone was always there to take care of Mom during the day, but the three of us did a lot of household chores and cooking. We were always aware of Mom, making sure she was comfortable and okay. Shari was the oldest, and by the time she was 12, she was doing a lot to take care of Mom and managing the house after school. We took turns every day with 3 jobs: cooking dinner or cleaning up or feeding Mom. We all liked it best when Shari cooked. We knew we would eat better, but she would have to help Steve and I cook anyway. She was almost 3 years older than I was. She couldn't help but want to guide us, but she was never bossy or judgmental or tried to tell us what to do. She was always nurturing and protective, not just with Steve and I, but with Mom and any pets or other creatures or humans that needed nurturing. That quality was a huge part of her all her life. We grew up knowing death was coming. There was a very real sense that it was in our future, and we all learned to accept and respect it. When our mom died, it didn't really surprise us. And even though we were grieving, we felt a sense of relief for her to be free from her body and the pain and confusion that polio had caused her. We learned early, excuse me, we learned early that death is not something you need to be afraid of. Shari carried that into her adult life as well. She volunteered with hospice, but was also unafraid to be a part of the process of dying, with our grandfather Schosel, our Aunt Laney, our father, her friend John. I remember the fun things we did as a family. The extended family was always around, and there were many fun dinners and holidays spent with grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins. I remember going fishing, camping, skiing, playing with the neighborhood kids, summers at the swimming pool, trips to Arizona on spring break. I remember feeling safe as she walked with me to and from school. I remember the time we ran away. We hid in the basement of a new house being built on our block and stayed there until we ate all the snacks we had packed. Then we came home, and I don't know if anyone even knew we were gone. We would drag refrigerator boxes up the alley from the appliance store a few blocks away and make houses to hang out in. And one time she knocked out my front teeth after we decided to play softball in the backyard, and she connected with the ball and it connected with my teeth. After we moved into our house at 1170 Fairfax and Mom was permanently home from the hospital, that first Christmas Eve, I would have been about 6. I remember lying in bed with her and listening for sleigh bells until we fell asleep. When we were supposed to be taking a nap, Steve and I would quietly sneak into Shari's room to play or have her tell us stories. Other than elementary school, Shari and I were never in the same school together. She would graduate in the spring and I would start in the fall. Her friends were not really a part of my life. I did, however, really like it when she could drive and would take my friends and I places. It was easy to talk her into that, and she never seemed put out by it. On some level, I always knew she was gay. Early on, she showed a preference for the company of women. When she was finally able to come out, it wasn't a surprise, just a relief that she could finally be who she was and live her life authentically. She was a great big sister. She was loving and kind, a wonderful aunt to my kids and grandkids, always supportive and encouraging of all of us being who we are. She appreciated the good things in her life, her family and friends, her stepmother, Marlene, who is the only mother we have known for more than 50 years, and the love of her life, her wife, Deborah. She had a good life. She had a good death, quiet and serene, slipping away to join the others who have gone before. I will miss being with her, but she is never far away.
Our next speaker is Chris Kelman, and she is Deborah's sister, and she will talk about Shari's fondness for Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh said, "How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard." Shari was easy to be with. She was easy to talk with. She was easy to laugh with. And I think she liked Winnie the Pooh for his love of things simple and filled with kindness. That's the way Shari lived her life. Shari was helpful to everyone. Personally, I'm forever grateful for when she helped us with our mother when she had Alzheimer's, as just one example. Without complaint, she jumped in and did whatever was needed. Shari was a pillar and actively engaged member of the community. She helped family, neighbors, friends, and anyone she met. Shari asked little of others and accepted responsibilities cheerfully. Her needs were few and her capacity for giving was absolutely vast. I admired Shari's humility, her thoughtfulness, her generosity, and her care for others. She accomplished so many things in her long and varied career. Shari was a hard worker who continuously found new purposes and jobs, even in what she called retirement. She did that many times. We're all proud of her for that, but her calm nature and presence are what I admired and appreciated most. Shari was like a sister to me and a perfect partner to Deborah. This is a big loss for me. But I know that her gentle, kind presence in the world has changed many hearts and minds in a way that I think the world needs now. Since Shari was so fond of Winnie the Pooh's simple wisdom, I thought I would share a few of his quotes that remind me of her. Sometimes, if you stand on the bottom rail of a bridge and lean over to watch the river slipping slowly away beneath you, you will suddenly know everything there is to be known. Or, when life throws you a rainy day, play in the puddles. Winnie the Pooh said, "If there ever comes a day when we can't be together, keep me in your heart and I'll stay there forever." And Shari will be in our hearts forever. Pooh also said, "The sun still shines even when it's hiding." Thank you, Shari. We will miss you.
Deborah's cousin, Jamie Richardson, will now play Family Tree.
Well, darn both of you. I got to stand up and sing now? Okay. In the shade of this old family tree, where the babies are born and the old branch has worn from the sun, where the fruit becomes seed, in the shade of this old family tree. They say blood's thicker than water. Well, some days it's harder to tell. Does she dance with an answer or the question that brought her? Which is the deeper, the thirst or the well? Tongue-tied and all the more certain, life's more than she was old. You draw a mighty thick line between the love and the hurt, till you pull up a chair where the stories get told, in the shade of this old family tree, where the babies are born and the old branch has worn from the sun, where the fruit becomes seed, in the shade of this old family tree. Blessed ties get all the more binding, to know we all go it alone. There's plenty reason to run, but let it stop you in finding there's always a chair where the stories get told. Still you feel a hurry behind you. Minutes don't tick all the same. You swear you'll never again go back to traveling lighter. But the moment's forgot and the minute remains in the shade of this old family tree, where the babies are born and the old branch has worn from the sun, where the fruit becomes seed, in the shade of this old family tree, where forever and always can be. Hi, I'm Deborah McNair, and I was blessed to have shared a life with Shari for 39 years. For the last 7 of those years, we were a married couple. As a matter of fact, Shari's peaceful activism for marriage equality landed her in jail one time, but that's another story. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Shari would have cringed at a gathering like this in her honor. For all her outgoing nature, the joke was she'd even talk to potted plants. She was pretty self-effacing. Being the star of the show or the object of much hoopla was never her idea of a good time. What was her idea of a good time was people, getting to know them, helping them, laughing with them, empathizing with them, supporting them. It didn't matter who you were, Shari cared about your life and your story. That's part of what made her a beloved educator and an effective volunteer phone counselor for the Alzheimer's Association. Shari had a love of connections. Time permitting, within minutes of meeting a complete stranger, Shari would find out what they had in common. Maybe they were both Denver natives, or had attended the same high school, or their grandparents had known one another, to give but a few examples. Bridging that gap delighted her. The best example happened on vacation in Portland, Oregon. Our hobby was building miniature dollhouses together then, and we were visiting a shop that sold all kinds of miniature accessories and furnishings. While I browsed, Shari struck up a conversation with the shop owner. One thing led to another, and she learned that the shopkeeper had lived in Denver and was friends with Shari's mother, Diane. Not only that, the lady had attended a baby shower for Diane when Diane was pregnant with Shari. And Shari was Shari, whether acting as a principal, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, a stranger, or as a spouse. What you saw was what you got, in public or in private. She shared exactly who she was with all who crossed her path. We met while working as librarians at the Greeley Public Library in the mid-70s. I remember hip hugger jeans were in then. That dates me. And my first impression was that with her long legs, no one did them more justice. While there was a mutual attraction, circumstances weren't right then for anything more. Years later, when we were both living in Denver, we reconnected and rediscovered each other. That second chance at love was something we never took for granted. I was smitten by Shari's unassuming goodness, her calm center, and her gentle nature. I adored being with her because she could find the fun in anything, even the dreaded chore of cleaning out the garage. She had a quirky and disarming sense of humor, and she was the best loser ever at gin rummy, played while eating her favorite mint chocolate chip ice cream on the patio during summer evenings. Shari had her foibles, as do we all. Once, as a brand new homeowner, her enthusiasm got the better of her in what we later called the Great Albino Lawn Incident. Thinking our backyard was looking a bit sickly, she bought lawn fertilizer, loaded the fertilizer spreader, and went to town. What she didn't realize was the spreader was dumping way too much fertilizer on the grass. When we opened the shutters the next morning, the lawn had turned white overnight. Needless to say, she was pulled off lawn duty immediately. To me, she was strength and shelter, solace and silliness, patience and sweetness. She had grit and grace, even in the face of 3 bouts of cancer. As my sister put it, she was a sage with a smile. There was never a day that I didn't feel showered with unconditional love and acceptance. And I had no idea I could love anyone that deeply for so long. Our bond grew stronger over the years and amazed us both. Even during the COVID lockdown, we relished the luxury of unbroken time with each other. And one of the nicest parts of our relationship was that secretly, each of us believed we'd gotten the better part of the deal. Shari was my heart's true home. I will love her and miss her forever. To end, I'd like to share her favorite poem by Khalil Gibran. It was sent to her during her 3rd and final bout with cancer, and it's entitled Fear. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The ocean cannot go back. To go back is impossible in existence. Nobody can go back. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear, because that's where the river will know It's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. May her memory be a blessing to us all.
I'm sure anybody that witnessed the love between Shari and Deborah and their love life together has been blessed by it. I truly have been. When I first talked with Deborah about what this day would look like, she said, I want to be surrounded by people who loved Shari and who are willing to share stories about her. Shari was a woman who ate and drank, loved and hoped, wept and laughed, and whose life touched so many of us. A gathering of remembrance allows us, even the tongue-tied, to dance a ceremony of love with and for Shari. Stories weave together to become a life raft that keep the bereaved and grieving afloat in the unfamiliar seas of grief. Now is our time to share with Deborah. To give you some idea about what to share, first say your name, and then you can share your first impression of Shari or a word that reminds you of her. You can share a special memory or of a humorous incident. You can share how much Shari is tucked into your heart. If you have something you would like to say, please come forward and use the microphone so that everyone can hear. Come on down.
My name is Janet Paradise Llewellyn. And in 1953, my parents joined Park Hill United Methodist Church. Well, it wasn't United yet, Park Hill Methodist Church. And I was 3 at the time. So we met many wonderful people there, and including the Wilkins and the Scholzel families. Mom became a friend of Diane's, Shari's mom. And when Diane contracted polio, I remember going with my mom to visit her in her iron lung. I'm not sure if it was at the hospital or if it was at home, but and of course she passed away when Shari was so young, just a teenager. Shari talked many times about how my mother, Eleanor, was very dear to her heart. And she was a connection from long ago with her own mother. When my dad, Tom, passed away, my brother, Gary, who'd been living with them for a couple of years, returned to Phoenix, and I moved into my mom's house, which was just happened to be 4 blocks down the street from Shari and Deborah. And Shari and I took up walking together. We would walk blocks and blocks and all that and talk and everything. And that was wonderful. She and Deborah were both so supportive of me in my journey as mom's primary caregiver. And having them close by just became a lifeline for me. I should go back because there's so many things in those years that were wonderful. Shari, for a time, was PFLAG Denver's chair of the board, and at that time, I happened to be an interim office manager for them. So I was, she and I worked, a lot together and trying to get somebody in that position and stuff like that. But we did all that. There were all these LGBT community center things and a lot of different stuff like that. So we knew each other that way as well as growing up together. My mom passed in 2012, and my dearest memory of Shari was at the graveside service prior to the memorial service for my mom. When the service had concluded, the graveside service, I walked to the car. I just went directly to the car, and it was Shari who sought me out. We hugged and cried together for several minutes. I don't know how long. I will be forever grateful to her for that shared moment in our mutual grief. In happier times, in 2018, my wife Sky and I, who's not able to be here today, were married, and Shari and Deborah signed our license as our witnesses. And that was always very special to both of us. I will deeply miss Shari's presence in this world. I do believe, however, that she has a whole new spiritual purpose now, and her soul will continue in kindness and compassion and gentleness for eternity. Thank you.
My name is Joan Root. My life has been enriched over the years by a great coincidence, because Shari and Deborah bought a house in the same block that my husband and I have lived in for over 50 years now. I don't know how long you've had your house, Deborah, but we became acquainted and became good friends. And as you've heard so many other people say, Shari was always a giving person. She gave and gave and gave. One of the memories that I have is that when my nephew, who was at that time working for ACLU and living in New York City, came back to Colorado to help his mother deal with his stepfather, who was developing dementia. And he went to the Alzheimer's Association to get some guidance on what he could do. And he told me about this wonderful woman that was so helpful and how much assistance she gave him. And I don't even remember how we finally found out it was Shari. And so then I called Shari and said, you know that guy that you talked to the other day? That's my nephew. And just toward the end, when life was fading, and I was sitting visiting with her one day, and I asked her if she was reading a lot, catching up on reading. She said no, she couldn't read anymore. She couldn't watch TV. And I said, well, how are you passing the time? And with the greatest of serenity, she said, I'm reliving all the wonderful memories in my head. I think that's a great lesson for all of us.
I brought something up to share because I have a couple things I have to do because I want to share so much about Sherry. My name is Kay Shaw, and Sherry and I go back a very long time, even before Deborah's time, because I remember when they found each other again. I do know it was again too. But I'd like to begin first. I knew Sherry first a long time ago, and so did the other person who would like to share today, and that's Debbie Lynch. Debbie Lynch was unable to be here, but she sent me a note that she would like me to read to you, Deborah, and she'd like for everyone to hear about her favorite memories of Sherry. I met Sherry at Colorado State College. Of course, we all know that's UNC now, in 1967. We lived in adjoining dorms. Our paths did not cross again until the late 70s when we were both new administrators in the Aurora Public Schools. I was fortunate to work with Sherry during her years as principal and later when she was director of classified personnel. Of my many good memories, one of the fondest is the day that she was arrested. And we all remember that because we all got the opportunity to see that's our friend on TV. While trying to secure a marriage license and the clerk's office, and many of you probably know the story about that. Anyway, I must say, in what I viewed, it was not un-Sherry at all. It was just like her behavior, to refuse to obey a request or to leave the office if she felt strongly about it. She was later charged and ordered to stand trial. While attending her trial, I realized the depth of her commitment to Deborah and to the causes of equal rights for all. In her normally under the radar, and that's the word we've heard kind of used over and over in a variety of different ways, she was unable to affect the change that she believed in, so she risked her reputation to do it, her friendships, and also her personal safety to make the statement that she believed in. I admired her all the way. The determination she showed in tackling the issues of equality demonstrated the same courage with which she approached her illness. And in her own way, she was a hero. I'd like to share my views of Sherry, and they go back a little earlier than all of those. Sherry and I first met when she was in Walden, Colorado. And Sherry was working there, and I was working at the State Department of Education with individually guided education, and she was in a school that was an individually guided education school. Later, I ran into her again when she moved to Platte Canyon. I kept asking her, couldn't she hold a job down, because then again, I saw her in Douglas County, so I kept thinking, but I knew Sherry well enough to know it was not a job. She was looking for more people to meet. There weren't enough in that district, so she had to try. Those were two small districts. So that led to where I later met her in life. Later again was the opportunity that Mary Cunningham and I had to hire Sherry. We hired Sherry in 1985. She was in the class of 85. And many of you who know Aurora Public Schools, when we were looking for principals and assistant principals, we had classes that came in, and we spent a lot of time doing training with those people. And I just have to say, many of you know the people of the class of 85, Debbie Backus, Nancy Fox, Jan Michaels, Bella Romero, and Jane Dooley Stewart. Of course, one of the groups, out of that group, every one of those people became an administrator. And I think that speaks highly of the type of people they were. And Sherry was one of the stars, always there. And as we said, under the radar, but so skillful. She really was at the head of the class. I remember when she met her love of her life, Deborah. Over the years, we have talked about what a difference it makes to have a love of your life, your soulmate. We talk so much about how that person changes your life, what they add to it, and how they enhance it. And as Deborah Lynch has shared, her friends were all aware of how far that Sherry was willing to go to make Deborah her wife. It has really been a pleasure of mine to know Sherry, and I'd like to just kind of end with a little final statement. Later, we served in the human resources within the Aurora Public Schools. I first was in staff development. I was first assistant director of elementary schools and then went to human resources with Shari. Both of us worked there closely together. We have tons of stories, but I'm going to let other people talk. But I just want to say that one of the things I promised Shari, and I told her even this when I went to see her recently, is I wouldn't tell all of them, that I would give someone else a chance to talk. So Barb Larson, I will give her a chance, I promise. Okay, but I do want to end with just one. After a few work-related responsibilities, she then took on the roles in the district of one of the ones we laughed about. Sometimes it turned into crying. And those of you who know in the district was the Employees Appreciation Program. You know, it's one of those things where people love to be appreciated, except when they didn't get it. You know, and so it was one of those things we're kind of always saying, well, what do we have to do to make sure to even out that people don't get hurt? But we're trying to recognize everybody. The other thing that was so much fun that Shari always did was the retirement dinner. And that was really a lot of fun because it was an opportunity for us to recognize people. And always, again, Shari was in the background, but she knew every person there. She could tell you 2 or 3 tales about everybody. You know, it wasn't, if I was sitting beside her at the table, she'd say, did you know so-and-so? Did you realize she did that? And did you know her hobby was? And I'm like, well, I knew this about her, but I didn't. So that was so true. But I must say the best role she ever played was the role of being my friend. I miss you, Shari. And we're here for you, Deborah. We love both of you and we'll always love both of you, and you're in our hearts.
Hi there, my name is Cherokee. And when Deborah asked if you can just come up here and say something about Shari, a word, and immediately I thought of Coach. I have been privileged to go into Deborah and Shari's house for the last maybe 13, 14 years. I've been their personal trainer. I miss Shari so much. And I would go to their house every Tuesday and every Friday morning. And they would open up the door and Shari would always say, hey, Coach, what do you got for us today? So I'd go downstairs and I'd get the workout ready. And we would just have, it was the best time. I just loved my Tuesdays and my Fridays going to Deb and Shari's house. And we had the best stories, we had the funnest time working out. And Shari would always have one speed. She was so fast at everything she would do. And so they would work, I would give them some workouts to do and they would do something separately. And Shari would always finish fast the first. And Deborah would always be like, you're finished already? How did you get all those done? She said 15. And Shari was she always finished, and Deborah would always say, Cherokee, you watch her, you make sure she does them all. That's not fair. And so Deborah would always say, yep, that's Shari, she has one speed. So I had the privilege of going to their house and making this fantastic memories, and she will be missed. She was so kind, so gentle, all of these years, so consistent, the same Shari, every Tuesday, every Friday, so supportive, and she'll be missed.
It's so wonderful to see so many people here. I'm Barb Larson, and I was a teacher, then a principal for the Aurora Public Schools. And a number, when we were principals, decided to do something rather unprofessional. We decided to have a group called the Lawn and Leisure Ladies. And we started playing croquet. And we would dress up. I mean, really dress up, hats, gloves, and play croquet. And we did that in the spring and the fall. And of course, Shari was amongst us, and we had a trophy that we passed around to each other. And it was just a good time to be kind of unprofessional. So I just wanted to share that with you. Shari is just, I don't even want to say her name in the past. She's just such a wonderful, wonderful person. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Jacobs, and I've had the great and grand pleasure of living next to Deborah and Shari for the last dozen years. About 12 years ago, I was divorced, and I went looking for another home in Park Hill. That's where my family home was. And I had the great fortune to meet Leo Boyle, who grew up in the home next to Deborah and Shari's in the home I'm in now. And Leo said, "Jim, grab my mom's home. It's been empty." And I only later remembered, he said, "You'll love the two women living next door." So I was in a divorce fog, and on September 1st, 12 years ago, I moved with my two still very youngest daughters into the house. The girls were in school that day, and I had two of the men with whom I work help move all of my furniture in. And if you've ever moved furniture, and we all have, you can remember the joy of that. The heat, the dust, some probably inappropriate words. And I didn't know what I was getting into in this home. And the first person I saw early in the morning before we opened the door was Shari, with this huge, warm, sincere smile. And right behind her was Deborah. And I thought, I wonder if I can recruit these two ladies to help carry furniture. But they wisely backed off, and we got to it. And as we took truckloads back and forth and books, you know the drill, there's always a smile and always a wave from Deborah and Shari. And I think of them as opposite sides of this golden coin. So we got everything in. I couldn't succeed in building beds for my little daughters, but they passed out happily on the mattress. And I walked outside on a beautiful September night thinking, am I going to be able to keep my family together? And that's when Shari walked out with that unbelievable smile. So sweet, twinkling eyes. Just, we all know we've loved it. And we just talked for a while, and I thought, my gosh, this might work out. And then as we settled in and I went back to my work nearby, I would get home very late many evenings, as we all do. And there would be so often Shari outside smiling, and we would just talk late into the evening. And it was such a source of not only solace, but absolute joy and laughter. The woman, as we know, had a great sense of humor. She was always smiling, just all the time. I think too about how smart Shari was. She and I used to try to figure out what I was doing on the lawn and surrounding shrubs of this house, because nothing had changed for a while and everything needed to be yanked. But it's not like getting rid of one sofa and putting in a new one. It's sort of an organic transition. And in my hands, I'm no Mr. Green Jeans. So about once a year, Shari would walk out and say, "Jim, what exactly are you doing with this tree?" Or what's the plan on the whole lawn in the backyard? And it just kept going downhill, downhill, downhill. It turned out that all of these different plants, lawns, and evergreens are sort of metaphor for my four children. And she, in all of her wise ways, would get around to saying, "How's your son doing? How are your girls doing?" And being, as I felt, kind of a solo parent, it was a chance for her to sort of take the gauge of what was going on in my home. She didn't owe me that courtesy, but it was a source of fantastic perspective, because all of her years in education were transmitted to me as she was a balancing guide in terms of me trying to figure out what to advise and what to do for my family. And if you've got kids, or if you've ever imagined having them, if you think you've got someone who can put a steady hand on your tiller to help go that way, you'll hold on to that hand. She was smart in another way. It was November 28th, and my youngest daughter was having her birthday, and she was in 6th grade at Park Hill. And I had come up with the idea that I was going to take 15 girls to a skating party in Aurora, which sounded great until her next eldest sister said, "Dad, we've got a problem." Now this, I just got home from work, it was 6 p.m. and this was going to be an all-nighter. And she says, "The toilets have stopped working." And I thought, well, I thought a few things, but here I'll just say, I thought, good Lord. And so Shari walks out and I'm talking to her and I said, "You're not going to believe it. I've got to pull out the skating party and I've got all these parties and cakes and these girls are going to be up all night. And oh my Lord, what am I going to do?" And she says, "Safeway." And I say, "Excuse me? Safeway?" She says, "Practically, it's 3 blocks away. The bathrooms are clean. The girls won't know the difference. Just go to Safeway." And I thought, bam. And we did 3 times. She said it was a great party. And I'll tell you, I laugh with the parents, but Safeway. One other thing I wanted to say, and it is so important, bear with me for a minute. I don't know, it's lost somewhere between my heart and my brain. Shari was for all of us, and remains here, such an incredibly kind, gracious, smiling, wise person. Oh yeah, here's the story, final one. Okay, ready? Whenever we try to figure out what I was doing with my lawn, she'd say, "I took a class at the Botanic Gardens," or "I know that I took a class in trees," or something like that. And I'd think like, what are you talking about? So when I got the Boyle home, I was forewarned that in front, they had 2 very tall, very old trees, Siberian elm trees, right? I'm impressed I remember that. And I was forewarned that they were going to be coming down. So about every month, Shari and I would sort of look up and she'd think, "They're looking long in the tooth here, Jimbo. This one of these things is going to come down." So ultimately, I'm looking at the mail and I get a sheet of paper and I walk outside and I'm feeling and looking miffed. And she walks over smiling at Sarah, says, "What are you bent out of shape about?" "I got a ticket." "Ticket for what?" "A tree ticket," I said. And she says, "Wait, like a parking ticket?" "Speeding ticket," which sounds sexier. "No, I got a tree ticket." So I got a ticket from the city arborist or forester or something that I had to pull down the tree because it was a civil risk. And I thought, somebody's drinking, and unfortunately it's not me. So I went down, talked to the city arborist, and the guy says, "Look, this thing's going to collapse and kill some kids. You got to take it down." So we buzz it. And then they take down the stump and fill it in. And then I'm sitting there about 2 weeks later looking. And of course, Park Hill, as we know, is filled with trees. And this is a living tradition. And you want to have trees, not only for ourselves, but in 50 years and 100 years. We all know this, right? And so I'm looking at this very small plot of land between my sidewalk, it's in the parkway, sidewalk on one side, and the neighbor's lawn. And I think, how the heck am I going to get a new tree in here? Because the tree I'd cut down was many feet across. So I went to City Floral on Shari's suggestion. I talked to the woman who knew everything about trees. And she says, there's one way to plant a tree. Right now, if you try to plant it, the stump is too, there's a point to this story too. But the stump is so wide, I've been forewarned by a couple of other folks, you'll never get a tree to take. You're jammed where the land is. So I talked to the woman at City Floral. She says, but you could do this, which I proceeded to do. So a week later on a Saturday, I got up at the crack of dawn and I started digging and exposing this tree stump that had been buried 2 weeks before. Now, if you know about that, by law, they have to be 18 inches down. And if you've ever dug a hole 18 inches down and about 8 feet wide, it's a lot of work. So I'm digging and throwing dirt in the street and on the sidewalk. And some of the neighbors, many of whom are here, would be coming by with spouses and dogs and kids. And they'd walk up and they'd look down and they'd think and ask, what in blazes are you doing as I'm digging? So I give them the theory that if you expose the stump and then you drill holes into it and put in root poison, you can destroy the roots in a year and plant a new tree. And I thought, I'm game. So I started digging and drilling and pouring in poison, and people are coming out, including the police officer who said, what in blazes are you doing? Anyway, 4 hours later and too many words later, I had exposed this stump. I'd been drilling into it. I'd been pouring this liquid poison into it. And I'm thinking, I wonder if this is kind of crazy. And I look up and there, out of Deborah and Sherry's home comes Shari. She walks out, pauses on her front porch, and has this grin from ear to ear. Now, mind you, she knew foresters and whatnot. So with every step, she begins laughing and laughing and laughing until I'm standing in the hole up to my knees, looking up at Shari, and she's looking down at me, and we didn't have to say anything, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed. That's the end of the story. She didn't have to say anything. I said, I agree. This is crazy, right? This isn't going to work. Anyway, it did work. And I have a little tree in its place. But when I think about Shari, I think about nonstop laughter. Oh, that our lives should be so filled with people and laughter like that. God bless Shari and Deborah. How lucky it is to be with you all. God bless us all.
Well, if Shari was here, and I know she is, not just because she's, out there somewhere, but she's here because she's in each and every one of us. And boy, if I'd have known, I'd have brought a sleeping bag, because I think we could probably be here for another couple days with Shari stories. In any case, I think if she had a song to choose, this would be it. So here's from Shari to all of you. I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but never lose that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one door opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you'll dance. I hope you'll dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. Never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some hell-bent heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you'll dance. I hope you'll dance. I hope
you'll dance. I hope you'll dance. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, dance. I hope you'll dance. Come on and dance. I hope you'll dance. She'd want us to dance. Love you, Sharon.
Amen. Amen. I have one announcement. You are welcome to join the family for refreshments when we are done today. There are desserts and drinks in the room to your left, and you are welcome to bring your plates back into this room and sit and talk and continue to tell stories and rewatch the slideshow. They're going to replay that again. So before we finish, though, I would like for all of you to stand. And I would like for you to please hold the hand of the person next to you. And if you have an issue with COVID, that's fine, you can move back. But Shari is the reason that we are all connected today. She brought us all together. She has loved us all, and we are so thankful for that. Let us pray. Oh, Spirit Divine, we are grateful for Shari's life. We are all connected through love, the love that Shari so freely shared with all of us. We can feel it pulsing and beating and giving us energy. As we continue to remember the ways in which she loved us, the ways in which she changed the world, the ways that she made us laugh, we pray that these human connections grow stronger. Let us continue to live in this world as Shari did, full of life, full of energy, and full of love for you. Be with us when our grief seems too big to bear. Comfort us in our loneliness. Welcome, Shari, into your loving arms to rest in peace and in power. Amen. Go in peace.